Welcome to our newest episode of the Lebanese Physicians Podcast. And today our episode will be with Dr. Pascal Jabbour, who is Distinguished Professor of Neurosurgery at Thomas Jefferson University. He's currently Chief of Division of Neurovascular Surgery at the university and is a pioneer in multiple endovascular procedures, including robotic endovascular surgery. In this episode, we'll be discussing with Dr. Jabbour his background, how he got to Jefferson, how he has been able to establish his name in the neurovascular surgery world, and then we will discuss the research positions he is offering for Lebanese medical students in the United States, and finally touch on his wine experience, as he's a wine connoisseur and has a lot of experience in that field. Welcome, Dr. Jabbour, to the podcast.
Thank you, Khalil. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us. And so I just wanted to discuss first a bit of your background in Lebanon, your medical school, and then how you decided to go into neurosurgery afterwards.
Yeah, so I went to the St. Joseph Medical School in Lebanon, graduated in 1998. Neurosurgery was my first rotation as a medical student at the hospital at Hotel Dieu. And as soon as I did this rotation, I fell in love with neurosurgery, and I started comparing every specialty that I would rotate on with neurosurgery. And then I realized that really this is what I wanted to do. So when I finished medical school, I took a residency position in neurosurgery at Hotel Dieu in Beirut, Lebanon. I did 4 years, and then usually you would do 4 or 5 years in Hotel Dieu, then you would go do a couple of years in France, and then they'll give you your diploma. So my dream was always to come to the US and try to do neurosurgery in the US. So I did 4 years. And then I was introduced there was the MIMA at AUB, the conference, yearly conference. There was a neurosurgeon of Lebanese origins, Dr. Issam Awad, who was at that time the chairman of neurosurgery at University of Colorado. So I met him at AUB at the conference, and I told him that I would like to come do an observership for a month. And this was like, I was a second year neurosurgery resident in Hotel Dieu. So when I finished my 4 years of residency, I asked the chairman, Dr. Nabil Aes at Hotel Dieu, I told him, if I go do 2 years in the US instead of France, would you give me my diploma? He said, yes, no problem. So at that time, I got in touch with Dr. Awad. I went for a month and did an observership. And then before I left, he offered me to come for a year, do just a residency. They used to call it pre-residency fellowship. This is because it was the 80-hour work week and they needed bodies to work. So they opened those positions where you would go and you would perform like any neurosurgery resident, but just for 1 year. So I took the position, I came, and I reapplied for residency at the end of this year. And then I restarted my residency all over again in the US. I matched in Colorado, did 2 years. Then I transferred my residency to Thomas Jefferson, finished it, did my fellowship, and stayed there. And the rest is history.
So you've been at Thomas Jefferson for a long time now, right?
Yeah, since 2004, counting residency and fellowship.
Right, and this is a big feat because it's very hard to get into neurosurgery as a foreign medical graduate in the US.
Yeah, it was challenging, but I was lucky because, as I said, I had Dr. Awad help me, and then when I came to Jefferson, the reason I decided to do a neurovascular is because the chairman, Dr. Rosenwasser, was a neurovascular specialist, and one time he took me to the INR suite. I was a junior resident, and he told me, just put your lead on and scrub in. And he started taking me through an angiogram. And at that time, I was like, wow, the chairman is showing me interest. I'm a junior resident, and he's showing me how to do angiograms. I think that's what I'm gonna do, neurovascular. So I was a PGY3. I went right away and booked my fellowship for 4 years later.
4 years later.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you did your fellowship in neurovascular surgery, and then you stayed in the field, obviously. So how did you become a prominent figure in the field of neurovascular surgery? So how was your pathway to achieving that?
Thank you. So yeah, it was an open and endovascular fellowship. So I do actually open and endovascular. I clip aneurysms, I resect AVMs, I do carotid endarterectomies, and then I do coiling, I do mechanical thrombectomies for stroke. And so I was very excited by the field, especially that all the technological advancements that were happening. This is a field that was booming and is still booming, but really was booming 15 years ago. And there was not a lot of neurosurgeons doing it because it was mainly a field for interventional neuroradiologists. So being a neurosurgeon, being able to do both open and endovascular was very attractive to me. And my chairman, Dr. Rosenwasser, was the first neurosurgeon that was introduced to endovascular. So he introduced neurosurgery to the field. And I was lucky to be at Jefferson, where we are a really high volume center. I had great mentors, and I started in 2009. We were part of all the big trials. We had so many cases. We had the fellowship. So everything lined up. I was in the right place at the right moment. I had a great team, and this is how it all started. Now, again, I think if all those conditions didn't meet at the same time, I wouldn't have been where I am right now. So I was really lucky.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes you need the right mentors in the right conditions for things to fall into place afterwards. And so from what we were discussing together, I think, because you went through a process to be able to reach where you are right now. And I know that you're trying to help students in Lebanon at this point, and you've established, I think, a research fellowship at Jefferson with youth. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yes.
How many students from Lebanon have you had, and how people can apply for it?
Yeah. So, it was so hard when I first came to try to do my neurosurgery residency. As you already mentioned, it is very competitive for international medical students. And I decided that if I make it, I want to help a lot of other people to make it. So in 2000, so I started as an attending in 2009. So in 2010, I started this position to get medical students that are interested in neurosurgery to come for 2 or 3 years of research fellowship with me, postdoc, a paid position, because anyone can offer just positions, and no one can come and live 1 or 2 years without getting paid. So it is challenging. So it was a paid position. And the goal was for those students to work with me for 2 or 3 years, and then I'd help them. So they'll publish papers, they'll get a good CV, and then I'll make my phone calls and then help them match into neurosurgery. So you have to be able to come and do this fellowship, you need to be interested in neurosurgery. Now, I can't help everybody, but a lot of times I get people that get in touch with me, they are interested in other specialties. I cannot do that. It's just mainly neurosurgery, but this is where I can help them if it's neurosurgery. So I started this, and I had connections with all the deans of the different medical schools in Lebanon, and I would get 5 to 10 applicants every year those applicants have to come and spend a month with me so we can get to meet them. I would give them a little paper to write, and then I'll make my decision and choose one of those candidates for this position. My first research fellow now is an attending at the University of Florida. It's his second year as a neurosurgery attending. What's interesting is my first research fellow is the son of a professor at Hotel Dieu that taught me when I was a medical student. And since that time, I have been able to place every single research fellow of mine in a neurosurgery residency program. So those guys are hard worker. I mean, they come here and they work really hard. And to give you an example, like they spent a couple of years, they publish average 40 to 50 papers during those 2 years. So they become very, very competitive. And with some phone calls and everything, they start getting interviews, and they match. So it's really rewarding to me to see that I'm able to make a difference, and I'm able to help all those medical students, because I always remember how much it was hard for me. If it wasn't it wasn't the help of other people, I wouldn't have made it.
So basically people would contact you and they would come for a 1-month elective.
Yes.
And depending on how they perform compared to others, you would make a choice of who's going to be your research fellow for the next year.
That's right. And then sometimes I try, it depends. Sometimes they would do 2 years with me, then they would do a year of clinic pre-residency fellowship somewhere else, so they can combine the research experience and the clinical experience. And then after that, they will go and apply for residency. I mean, in neurosurgery, it's very important to take their time to apply, because once you have the stamp of you didn't match, it will follow you each time you reapply. I have sometimes people that would come and say, well, we're going to apply at the end of the first year. I say, absolutely not, because at the end of the first year, you didn't have time to publish, you didn't have time to have your papers on PubMed and everything. So that's why at least 2 years. And once they apply and they don't match, it's going to be really hard for them to match on a second round. So.
Yeah, right, because that's going to follow them afterwards. And I think your most recent research fellow is from LAU, right?
My most recent research fellow is from LAU. He is now a second-year resident at University of Chicago.
Okay.
And now I have a fellow from AUB. He's applying now, and already he got 10 interviews so far. I have a fellow from LAU that's going to apply next year.
Right, your fellow from LAU, I worked with him when I was there, so I see his posts on LinkedIn sometimes with you. So
the one that's with me now, or the one that's already at University?
The one
of
who's
Chicago?
with you now, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And so so before we go to your passion in the field, so what's your advice, I guess, since we discussed it, what's your advice for people who are applying for neurosurgery? You gave us some advice now, but what's your advice on how they can get a position if they can get a fellowship with you, I guess?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that they shouldn't be discouraged. Like, we've been there and you've been there, and sometimes people that would discourage you and tell you can never make it. It's so hard. You need to take a risk, and if you really you are passionate about something, you need to try. You won't know that you're gonna fail unless you try. And again, when I told my friends in Lebanon I'm gonna go try to do neurosurgery residency in the US, I can't tell you how many started laughing at me, say, okay, good luck, we'll see you next year, you'll be back. And so they should not count years. That's the most important thing. Don't count years. If you want to do it, you'll end up doing it, but don't count years. You need to take all the time needed to be able to do it. Now, you need to, of course, work hard, very hard, and you need to have good grades on the USMLE, the step 1 and step 2, because those are the first screening process for residency applicants, right? I mean, we look, and for neurosurgery, we have a certain score where below it we wouldn't interview people. So very important for them to take their time to study. I usually would take research fellows that already passed their step 1, step 2. They need to have like really competitive grades, because it doesn't make sense to do all this work but without the competitive grades to be able to be good candidates. And then at the same time, I don't want a research fellow that would come and spend 2 years studying for the step 1, step 2. They will waste their year or two instead of publishing. So that's why wherever they come from, which country they come from, take their time before coming to study real well, to have good grades on the step 1, step 2, really competitive scores. And then they need to, as I said, to take a risk and go in. It's the future won't be like all clear in front of them. It's gonna be, you know what, I know what's gonna happen the coming 6 months. I'm gonna embark in this, and then we'll take it, we'll see. Because it's not like somebody's gonna promise them. It's like, okay, I promise you in 3 years you're gonna do a residency, or we're gonna find you a spot. So you need to be able to take some risks and accept to take some risk, but at the end it is rewarding. I mean, one of my fellows really was a neurosurgery resident in Lebanon, left residency at the end of the 5th year, and they didn't want to give him any diploma because he left. Even so he really took the risk that if he didn't match in neurosurgery, he would have done 5 years and that's it. And they didn't want him to go back. They told him, you left, that's it, you're not coming back. So those 5 years would have been gone,
Right, and then he made it. So basically, it is basically hard work, research, and establishing connections with people to get in.
Yeah.
And taking the risk, obviously, but like everything else in life, I think you just need to take a risk.
That's right, yeah. And if you don't make a move, no one's gonna fly to your home country and give you on a silver plate a residency position, right? Or if you're gonna listen to the rumors and all the stories like, oh, you won't be able to do it, and this and that, yeah, you won't be able to do it. Right. So as I said, I mean, really, I mean, this has been really like the one of the joys of my existence, working with those people, seeing the joy, the happiness when they match, seeing like how all this hard work is rewarded, at the end. And they are all grateful. And really, I mean, sometimes they ask me like, what's your legacy? What do you think you've contributed and stuff? I never answer about neurosurgery. I say, those guys are my legacy. I mean, if I contributed something, is I contributed in shaping the future of someone who deserves it. That's my legacy. And that's what I'm most proud of.
Right. And it's been hard, actually. This is a very good position for people, because it's been hard for people from Lebanon to find paid research positions these days in the US to do their like research fellowships, especially with the financial crisis in the country right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I mean, you've been in the field for a long time now. So how do you maintain your passion, I guess, in the field, right? Because you're doing it day in, day out for many years. How do you maintain your passion in the field?
So, I'm lucky I'm in a subspecialty where, as I said, there's disruptive innovation every day. I mean, in endovascular and neuroendovascular, new devices, new technologies coming up. So it keeps you on the edge all the time. It keeps you excited about the field. We're part of all the trials, new devices. We help companies improve and develop devices. So it's been really exciting. The field has been really exciting. It's a good time to be in neurovascular in this field, really. The last 10 years have been great. And, if you don't love what you do, like no one will push you to wake up at 2 a.m. to go do a stroke or things like that. You can't do this for a long time. So you have to really love your field. And as I said, maybe if I was in a different subspecialty without all those technological innovations, maybe I would have lost really the passion or the interest. But in neurovascular, every day is something different. So it's hard not to love it or be passionate about it.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of innovation in the field every
Yeah.
day. And so, what are you? I mean, you're big in neurosurgery and in the field. So, what are some of your major hobbies outside of the neurosurgery field? I mean, I read something about your interest in wine.
So yeah, this is one of my hobbies. I actually went to wine school. Decided I always liked wine, and I was a wine collector, but I wanted to really get to the science of it, and I wanted to get go to school and get a diploma, and then I decided to embark in the journey of becoming a certified sommelier. So I went to wine school. I was going at night. Courses were like after 8 p.m. And I did it all the way to a level 4 sommelier. So there are 5 levels, and the highest level is master sommelier. I'm not a master, but I'm a level 4 sommelier. I think it's really important to have some hobbies in life and to be able to decompress. What we do is something that really can drain you and takes a lot of energy from you. So once you get outside the hospital, you really need to be able to recharge, and you can do it different ways. And I decided to do that. So I studied winemaking also. I'm a winemaker, and I make wine, and this has been a great journey, and I've been enjoying it. So I encourage everyone with a passion to follow it, and to try to follow some hobbies outside their professional field, because really time goes really quickly. I still remember when I was a resident as if it was yesterday. I mean, my kids now, my son is in second year of college. I still can't understand how this happened. I mean, really. So bucket lists, I have, and my opinion about bucket lists, people get bucket lists because they think they have time, but in reality you don't have time. And bucket lists are meaningless, because especially in my specialty, we see people with ruptured aneurysms, young people with stroke. Well, those, they had a bucket list the night before this aneurysm ruptured, because they thought they had the time, but here it is now. So I always tell my residents, don't keep a bucket list. You want to do something, just do it. Just do it and enjoy it, and you will figure it out. So
Right, exactly. Because that's what I always tell people too myself. Like, some people say, I'm going to wait till retirement to do this or do that. Like, you don't know that you're going to reach retirement. That's the problem.
That's right. Exactly. Yes.
And if you reach it, you don't know that you're going to be strong enough to do whatever you want to do. So two more questions about the wine world. So what kind of wines are you making right now? What kind of grapes are you?
So we're actually making wine with in Bordeaux with Chateau Lynch-Bage. So we're making Bordeaux blends. We've made 3 vintages so far, and it's been a great experience working with winemakers from a famous chateau like Lynch-Bage in Bordeaux. And practically we make 3 different types. We make a type we call it left bank. It means the majority is Cabernet Sauvignon with a little bit of Merlot, a little bit of Cabernet Franc. We make a right bank, which is mainly Merlot and a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon. And we make one that's mainly Cabernet Franc. So those are the different styles of wine of Bordeaux. But the only thing is we still don't know the real result of what we've done, because Bordeaux wines need to be aged real long, and our oldest vintage is 2018, so it's still considered a baby for Bordeaux, as compared to, for example, Californian cabs, where they are made to be enjoyed young, and they are all fruit forward and you can enjoy them young. So the Bordeaux wines need to be aged, but the whole process has been a great experience and really pleasurable.
Excellent. So how many years will we have to wait to know the success of your wines?
Maybe we'll make a podcast in 5 years. I'll give you an update.
Yeah, we'll wait for that. And so any final words of wisdom or advice that you want to give us before we end the podcast?
Yeah, I think people really, and a lot of people realize that once you have a goal in life and you reach your goal, sometimes it's hard to try to move and try to help other people reach their goal. I think it's very important to really understand life and understand, generations, and understand that, every person gets their prime 10, 15 years, let's say. But then it's not all about you at a certain point. It should be about something else that's more durable, right? If you start taking care of the young generation, if you start mentoring people, and those people will mentor the other people, and that would do the same thing that what you did with them, you would create something really great. And those are accomplishments that last, accomplishments that you do yourself, and it's all about what you did. Can be great. You can describe a new technique, you can publish a great paper, and then 5-10 years later, no one's going to talk about it anymore. So create a lineage. Once you create a lineage, once you do that, I think that's the best thing you can do. So always look for young people to try to help them and mentor them, because there are so many young people that have everything needed to succeed, but one thing they don't have is the good opportunity and the good mentorship. If you provide those two things, they're going to thrive.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Dr. Jabbour, for being on the podcast and for helping a lot of the students in Lebanon. And we will tell students, I guess, anybody who's interested in neurosurgery probably should be contacting you to see.
Yeah. I'm on social media. They can get in touch with me on any social media platform. They can email me. And thank you, Khalil, very much for this invitation. It was a great pleasure and honor to be with you.
Of course. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks.